We're back for part three, Raf Silverstone State Based podcast with my co-host Amanda Desensi and our guest Alex Duchene. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I want a quick
Very
apology for the way we cut off at the end of the last show. A mistake on my part, so I do apologise. We were actually talking about your sister and that you revisit a story, and although now you probably smile and laugh at it, it was probably very traumatic at the time.
Yeah. It was pretty bad. And it's funny because we occasionally bring it up when people because we've got gaslit like so many times in our life in terms of people trying to diminish what we went through. So it's one of those stories that when people are like they like we feel like we need to prove like how bad things were. This is like one of the stories that comes up. So when we were younger, I think we were teenagers. My sister was probably about 15 and I was like 12-ish around that time. We had turtles and I had one, my sister had two. And it was during the time where things were particularly bad with because my sister was starting to rebel. She was, 15, she was a teenager. She was a
yeah,
very
that's right.
angry teenager. And so things between her and my mom would escalate very quickly and often. Um, and we were in one of those crisis situations that I talked about before. And my turtle was a like an earth, like not a water turtle. My sister had
Yeah.
water turtles, and the fish tank was sitting on the kitchen counter, and my mom knew which one of the two it might was, and that's a detail actually that I remembered over the weekend. My mom actually she knew which one of the two was my sister's favorite, and she
Okay.
specifically went for that one. And full crisis. My sister and my mom are yelling at each other. My mom is completely out of control. She's threatening my dad. She's yelling at us, and all of a sudden, she grabs the turtle out of the fish tank. She grabs a knife and she plunges the knife through the turtle. Um,
God.
and like that wasn't enough. For the next, 2, 3 hours, she was flailing like the knife around with the turtle, like still like on the knife and, kind of like she wasn't dead. She was just wobbling around. She was on the knife.
Oh
And
my God.
literally just for the next 2, 3 hours that we were still in this crisis, that she was still yelling at us, she had the knife in her hand with the turtle on it. Like if we, I mean, I know
I
it's so.
know.
Well, it's wild. I mean,
Oh,
like
it's
it,
wild because I even
yeah,
like as I'm telling this story, like it doesn't even like it sounds so crazy that
it's
myself I'm like this is
outrageous.
so
Like,
it's so outrageous, right? But it did happen. It did happen. And I remember when the whole thing ended, my sister and I, the turtle was still alive.
wow. I was
We
gonna ask you.
Yeah,
Wow.
and my sister and I, as kids, essentially. I mean, yeah, we were teenager, but we were kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But once my mom had basically decided, okay, we're done here and gone off to sleep, I guess, we had to take the turtle off the knife.
Oh my God. That's
Yeah,
so horrific.
it
Like,
was it was fucked up to say
It's
the least.
it's
yeah.
really it's really surreal. It's almost like someone would write that
Yeah.
in a film.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
like
so, we knew that like we were afraid for our life. Like now I understand that, she was violent. She could have very well done something to us. And I think her fear was more about getting caught than anything else, to be honest with you. Now, as an adult, that I see in
Yeah.
retrospect how everything went down. But at the time, I was like, if she could do that, she could do that to me too. Like
yeah.
For sure.
you know, like I said, I had nightmares of finding my sister dead or my dad dead, because my mom had one of them,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty horrific. It was pretty horrific.
Yeah.
At any time, has there been any kind of accountability for behavior like that?
Ever.
None.
No.
I know it
I
wouldn't
think
help as a big thing, but even as a small gesture, you can kind of rationalize and walk away if somebody says, "Look, I know what I did there."
No, no, like when would confront her about things like that, she would brush it off like if it was nothing. She was like, "Oh my God, get over it." Like it was
Blase.
literally like
It
it was
was
normal.
definitely not
Like
nothing.
it's normal to stab like your child's pet
Yeah.
and wave it around on a knife. Like it's completely normal, just normal Tuesday behavior, you know? She would literally brush it off like if it was like, "Oh, get over it."
There's no getting over that.
Yeah,
Like that's
and today,
wow.
like if we were, hypothetically speaking, if I were to confront her about it today, she would probably just flat out deny it and said I imagined it at this point. Yeah, because it's still
Wow.
years to go and whatever. So yeah, no
Wow.
ability, And again, that's why I couldn't, once I got healthy, when you're doing the work, you can maintain a relationship if the other person is also doing the work. And like you said, there's accountability and there's a path
Yeah.
forward. But when you're dealing with someone who completely denies your pain, who basically
Yeah.
literally says, I didn't do those things to you. No, like you
Well,
can't
and plus if
go
she's a
forward
narcissist, she said she was
completely.
diagnosed as a narcissist, then she's never gonna have accountability. Like it's literally
No.
impossible she ever
No, and
would.
she
So
even denied her own the diagnosis. Like when they diagnosed her, she walked out of the hospital and said, "No, you're wrong."
of
So,
course. Yeah.
so yeah.
As you were like
Wow.
progressing, you've already got a child and you're going on, you're having you're going through infertility treatment. Did you have like real preconceived hard and fast rules how you was going to parent?
How I was going to parent?
Yeah. You've been successful with your first child. Or was that
Yeah.
something you had a model almost, so to speak?
Um, I think, I mean, it wasn't so much as a model, but it was just this instinctive knowing what to provide to my kids because all of the things that I had been lacking as a kid. And
Mm.
just knowing instinctively how, you know, I remember, for example, like when I met my second husband, he didn't have kids. He didn't have small kids around him. He had no experience with parenting, and it was a real learning curve for him. So there were times where, we would sit and talk because he was struggling with, connecting with my son, and I would say, you need to try this, you need to do this, and it was all things like I didn't need to read a book. I just instinctively knew that, when you give a child absolutely one-on-one undivided attention and you make them feel like they are the center of your universe.
Yeah.
Was that even more so?
But what,
'Cause-
sorry?
Was that even more so with that you because you went through fertility treatment?
Uh, no, I think again, it just comes from me like completely lacking love when I was a kid.
Okay.
And knowing what I would have needed from not just my parents, but other people, other adults in my life who loved me, supposedly
Mhm.
who were supposed to love me and didn't.
Yeah.
Um, and also just as a human being, what makes you feel loved as a person when
Yeah.
somebody really fucking sees you, when somebody is not only, spending time with you, but like they're not looking at they're not they're looking at you and they're seeing you. Whatever that
Yeah.
means, whether it's listening to you in a conversation, whether it's doing an activity with you that you chose, not them, or you know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
so all those things that as a human being makes you feel seen. As a parent, I transferred that into my parenting. And I made sure that, like I'll give you like I remember little things like when Liam was little, I would I'm a very sensory person, so I liked, letting him touch things a lot. So when I would make dinner, I would, he would be 2 years old and I would sit him on the kitchen counter while I'd be cooking or whatever, or baking. And I would let him touch things. And my mom would often, be right behind him, grabbing things out of his hand because he might make a mess.
It's a mess, isn't it?
And I
I
would tell
encouraged it.
her, like, I would tell her, I'm like, so he makes a mess. Like, what is the big fucking deal? I'm like,
Yeah.
there on one side, you're like, there's, okay, he might possibly make a mess. And on the flip side, the self-confidence that a little kid gets from simply being able to pour his own milk in his own glass
Yep.
is mind-blowing. Like people don't like something as stupid as ripping that glass out of a child's hand and being like, no, you're gonna spill it. You're like that fucks with your like your neurotrans like I'm not a
Yeah.
psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist, I don't have the words, but I just understand it innately. And so
Yeah.
I was just that mom that I was like, you know what, put your hands in there, like go for it, play
Yeah.
it. That it doesn't matter. Life is messy. You're gonna make, and I was just all those things were just it was insane.
Natural.
It's just natural to me.
Yeah.
I was just, and for me, um, I really believe that, especially in formative years, self-esteem and self-confidence are like they are at the root of a lot of things moving forward. And so if you are able to give your child early on in life a very strong sense of self,
Yeah.
like for example, as soon as my kids were able to pick out their clothes, I didn't pick out their clothes. I was like, go pick out. And if that means that they wanted to wear two socks of two different colors, then
So
wear
be
it.
it.
So be it.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So I was not a rigid mom in those. I was rigid with things that I really felt mattered, but those things that matter to a lot of other people to me really didn't matter. I was very flexible and, I would let them, stay up. Like I wasn't rigid with bedtimes. I made sure that they got the amount of sleep that they needed
Mhm.
to function as children and to
Yeah.
be happy and all those things.
They'll
But
they'll sleep when they want to sleep as well.
But if I knew that, there was a night where there would be shooting stars, I'd wake them up in the middle of the night and I'd be like, we're getting in a car and we're going to drive an hour out of the city to see the shooting stars. I was that mom.
Yeah, we have
Those
similar. We
memories.
have
Yeah.
Yeah.
we have
So,
similar parenting
yeah.
traits. I'd set Kane out in the garden as a little child and lie him on my chest to watch a storm rolling in,
Yeah.
just to let
So
him see
like
it. And
things like that were so much more important to me
yeah,
than being rigid about discipline or about, and the thing is that it comes back to you tenfold because you build that bond with your children where growing up, your children respect you. You don't need to ground them. Like, I never had to ground my kids. I rarely get mad at my kids because I've developed that bond where, listen, I'm not stupid. I'm sure that when Izzy gets to be 15 or 16, there's going to be some acting up and all that
Yeah.
stuff.
Of course.
Generally speaking, I have a really good relationship with my kids where they care about what I say. They want to do good. They want to listen. Like they don't listen to me because they're afraid of me. They listen to me because the same way I don't want to disappoint them, they don't want to disappoint me. And but it's a give and take. It's a two-way street. And yeah,
are you comfortable playing both roles when you have to? You feel you have.
yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
it's
I do
quite.
have control. I do have control when I need to. When I need to, yes. Like yeah.
Let's circle back and revisit something that we just touched on.
Ooh,
Um, you went and you went and saw your brother, and you explained that there was actually two of you, that you had
yeah.
a sister.
Yeah.
How did that first meeting actually go?
It was crazy. It was really, really crazy. Um, I took a flight up to Montreal on a Friday night. Um, I went to my sister's house, which is usually where I stay when I go to Montreal. And the next day we had planned for my brother to come over during the afternoon, and we were nervous as fuck. Like we were
Yeah.
like we had no idea what to expect at all. And he came over that day and he ended up like sleeping over at my sister's house because it was like 12 hours of just sitting in the same spot, drinking wine, smoking weed, and just crying and taking breaks because it's a lot. And then at some
Yeah.
point, we're all exhausted and we were just like, just crash on the couch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
Were you recognizable to each other immediately?
Well, he didn't recognize us because I mean me, he didn't know. And my sister, she was an infant. She was 2 years old when he left the family. And I don't he his memories are also very, very fractured. But I mean, I obviously recognize him because he looks exactly
Yeah.
like my, he really does. Like the minute we opened the door, there was like no confusion as to who this person is. Like, this is my brother. There's no doubt about it. But there was a very eerie feeling that I didn't expect. I didn't see it coming, but was very, very. Is the sound of my dog bothering you? Because she's like,
Not in the slightest, no.
um, I remember we were sitting in my sister's living room, and I don't remember the order in which but it was the three of us around the table. And I just remember this like physical sensation of I hadn't realized that a person was I just remember sitting there and looking at my brother and saying it was also always supposed to be the three of us. Meaning that when I was younger, not only did I want to have an older brother, but there was this physical void that I felt was there, but I didn't realize that it was there until I met my brother and was like, oh shit, like you were that void. Like there had been a void in my life that I hadn't realized was the void of my brother.
Yeah.
I don't know. And it's weird because again, like him and I never really had we never met. Like this was the first time we met. I was born a few months after he was taken out of our family. But yet that void was there because once it was the three of us sitting in that room, I felt like this is what it was always supposed to be. It was meant to, we were supposed to be three. I was meant to have an older brother. Like it just felt like the pieces clicked, you
Did
know?
he feel that way too? Did he
Yeah,
ex yeah.
he did. Like there were a lot of things that he didn't understand about himself that all of a sudden made sense. Like he has my dad's mannerisms. He has some of me and my sister's mannerisms. That's why, there's a lot of things that people are like, is it nature or nurture? There's a lot more to nature than you think because, like, we've
Uh,
never lived together.
yeah.
And yet we
Excuse
have
me.
some of the same voice intonations. We talk with our hands the same way. Like, he gestures the same way. Like, he came down to visit a few months after we met him, and a friend of mine took a picture of me and him, like from the back, like me and my brother sitting next to each other. And we have a similar posture. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
just,
That's so cool.
it's so bizarre. It's
Yeah.
so bizarre. Yeah.
A very flippant
Wow.
question about this. At any point, did you feel like letting your mum know that you were whole again? Was there anything about that?
My mom, no. At that point, I was no. My sister was afraid. She was afraid that the family would find out, like at first, that, we met him and that they would try to, because my family's, I have family relatives that cause a lot of drama when they have the opportunity to. So at first, my sister didn't want anybody to know because she was like, if they find out, they're going to want to have access to him. They're going to cause problems and it's going to freak him
Yeah.
out and, all that stuff. And I get that and I respected that at the beginning, but I quickly got to a point where I was like, I don't give a fuck if they know. Like let them find out. Let them be envious of the fact that we've
Well,
reconnected.
they should feel guilty too, the ones that knew the truth and stuff, especially. I mean, that's
Yeah.
accountability again. You can't force it, but I'm
And
sure. Yeah, like,
the interesting part was that my dad met him the next day.
oh
Oh,
wow.
good.
Yeah. So my dad got to meet his son.
Wow.
There was a language barrier there because my dad is French from France. He moved to Canada in 1964. And as much as he tried, he never really learned English. So he knows like basic words. He knows hello, goodbye, and like how
Yeah.
are you? Um, and my brother doesn't speak a ton of French. He speaks mostly English. So there was a language barrier there. Um, but my sister and I translated, and it was so weird to see them sitting next to each other. Um, and again, I'm my dad was not my dad is not innocent
Excuse me.
because he was also part of, what
Yeah.
happened. The the aggressor was my mom, but again, my dad's not innocent, but I also know that my dad is cut from a very different cloth than my mom. My dad would take ownership. My dad would apologize. My dad had love for
Yeah.
us. My
Yeah.
dad would tell us, I know I wasn't the best dad. You know what I mean? Like there was
Yeah.
accountability there. Um,
That's all you can really ever ask of anybody.
Yeah.
yeah. And so when he met his son that day, that was the best thing I ever could have done for my father. Like if I ever did one single thing for my dad,
That was it.
is that, both my sister and I, if we did anything for him, is that at least, a few years before he passed, because he passed in 2022, uh, we got him to finally reconnect with his son, which
Yeah.
was epic. It was crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We look so much alike.
It's nice to hear. I mean, even though it's quite a very traumatic story,
Yeah.
there's always little tiny bits that come together that you can look back on
And
and
there's so
smile.
much more. There's so much more to the story. Like I'll give you an example. Like my aunt in France, she my dad's sister. My dad had two sisters and two brothers. So they were five kids. But he had one sister who he was particularly close with, my Aunt Janine, who I love. Um, and she was devastated by the whole Eric story. And she kept a picture of him on her fridge for
Oh,
40,
wow.
for
Oh,
50 years. And so when we met him, again, he's like, we're strangers to him, right?
Yeah.
And we tell him that like this 80-year-old lady in the south of France, in a little town close to Montpellier, has a picture of him on her fridge and has had it there for 50 years. Like
Amazing.
things like that, like just blew his mind.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was crazy. It was really crazy. Like we're still digesting. Like listen, it's been 7 years now, 8 years, and
Well,
we
it's overwhelming. I mean,
have
it's
moments of just like,
yeah.
what about this? What about that? What about this? Yeah.
did you need to take a step back from it at all?
I did. I think it was like about a month in. We all took a month or two where we kind of, because some of the stuff that we found out through my brother in terms of again, the level of abuse that he went through, we weren't aware of. Um, and it was a lot. Like when we met, my brother is extremely, I don't know what the word is, because damaged makes him sound like he's in bad shape now, and he's not. He's functioning, he's got a partner, he's got a daughter. I have a niece, um, which is wonderful. But
Yeah.
when we met him, he's not your typical person. You can tell that he's highly scarred
It's
from what
being
happened.
it's being pragmatic and being able to label it, put it in a box, and fucking
Yeah.
bury it. That's the only
Yeah.
way.
So, so when he actually told us some of the stuff that he remembers, uh, we were just like, okay, holy fuck, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, something you make a movie out of, like, this is fucked up, you know? Like, his sister told us about reports where he was left on the side of the highway 3 times in diapers.
Jesus
A
Oh my
Christ.
baby
God.
in diapers. They left him on the side of the highway, and he was picked up by the RCMP, which is the regional police in Quebec. Um, yeah. So
I don't know how they'd explain that. How would your parents
you
explain, like, I
don't,
mean,
you don't. You know, and again, I mean, I don't know the details. I'm not convinced that my dad was the one driving that car. It could have been my
yeah,
uncle, it could have been somebody else. I don't know, but it was definitely my mom's doing. That I know.
yeah.
That I know. And that's what made me stop speaking to my mom. That was it. That was the nail in the coffin. When I met my brother, we found out the truth. I I just couldn't move past it. And again, it's not a question of being angry. I was just like, why am I killing myself to have a relationship with a person who is so incredibly abusive
Yeah.
and toxic?
I'm a firm believer that most people intrinsically have a moral compass. You know what's right and what's wrong. The majority of us, it's quite
Yes,
clear that you have that moral compass.
of course.
I I reflect upon what you've been saying, and we're able to do so because of the way society has changed so much to now. And if you can imagine, if the like social services, child services, what they would say and do, more than likely, both your parents may have ended up going to prison. I'm sorry to say.
We say, my sister and I say that today, that we were abused to a level where, yes, my parents could have absolutely gone to jail. Yes,
Yeah.
I believe so.
absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
How do you swallow that pill? Haven't you?
I mean, I've really moved past it in the sense that, again, like, I'm in a good place now. You know, I'm good. Um, Honestly, for me, the biggest thing for me when it comes to my trauma that still sits with me and that I still cry about is I felt like I was cheated out of a mother. Like, I have so many women friends in my life that have a wonderful relationship with their mom. I have no idea what the fuck that feels like.
Yeah, agreed.
And there were so many times in my life where I would have needed that, even as an adult, even
Right.
now,
Of course.
Oh,
even now, they're like,
I can
even now,
empathize with that.
there are
Fucking
times in my
hell.
life where I'm like, you know what? Like, if I had a normal mom, my mom would be helping me with this right
Yep,
now.
yep.
And that's actually what I have found the hardest is I feel like I was orphaned. I feel like I just
Mm.
was, I mean, there's been so many times when, I remember once I was at my sister-in-law's house for, I don't know, Passover or something. And my mother-in-law, Gloria, was sitting on the couch, and my sister-in-law was complaining because she had severe migraines and she was complaining that her head was hurting. And this is like, my Marla was, I don't know, my sister-in-law was maybe 40, Gloria was, in her 70s or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, come here, put your head on my chest. Come here." And she sits on the couch. And I literally had to excuse myself to go to the washroom and burst into tears because
Yeah.
it just it just hit me like so hard that I was like, I don't know what that's like, and I will never know what that feels like ever. And so for
Yeah.
me, I think the one thing that I still struggle with, and I don't think that will never ever go away, but I can talk about it way easier than I used to because few years ago, I would have said the same thing. I'd be in tears right now. But yeah, that's what I still really struggle with. Yeah.
Part three's drawing to a close, and quickly, I'd like to say to our viewers that the next episode will be examining the way the Jewishness of Alex, how it's woven through her life, and how it's inspired her, especially post October 7th. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you very much.